After a brief stop in Chicago, I'm on my flight to Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida. I've been waiting to visit the property for well over a year. It's everything I imagined it would be and more. The site of the guitar-shaped hotel is extremely impressive. There's plenty to enjoy on the inside as well. There are unique, aesthetically pleasing features all over, in addition to world-class restaurants like Council Oak Steaks and Seafood, where you can get a delicious meal accompanied by regularly scheduled live entertainment. I make it up to my room. It's amazing, just as I expected it to be. I'm staying in the brand new guitar building. I'm a little afraid of heights, but I kind of like that feeling, and I always request to be on a higher floor if possible because I love good views. I almost immediately check it out. The camera doesn't do it justice, but there are several beautiful looking pools that the room overlooks. I close my eyes and wish really hard that it was daytime and I could be enjoying it outside. Then all of a sudden I am. Instantly, it's 11 a.m. the next morning and it's perfect weather. There's a magical place where you get about just whatever you want. Right now, you guys are probably wanting poker. Boom, all of a sudden, we're right there about to play, and we're gonna be doing it in accordance to the property's top-notch, safe and sound program. The team here has gone above and beyond to put in measures for the safety of the players and the staff. Played at quite a few different locations in the last several months. Seminole Hard Rock is by far the most diligent when it comes to cleanliness and sanitization. Not only are there plexiglass dividers at every table, separating players from other players and the dealer, there are breaks every few hours in order for cleaning crews to thoroughly clean chips as well as tables. They're super fast too. There's actually in regular speed. Today we're starting out in the 2-5. I buy in for 1,000, which is the max. All games are limited to 7-handed. Once any player takes their seat, the dealer is required to squirt some sanitizer in their hands. Now I'm ready to play, and others are ready to play with me.
Hopefully I take your money, okay?
Yeah, well, a lot of people are after the Bradley dollars. I prefer not to give it to them. Let's see what happens. Early on, I'm dealt 10-9 suited in the big blind. Under the gun raises to 20. The button calls. Small blind calls. I'm getting a good price. I call for 15 more. We go 4 ways to the flop. Comes Queen 10-6 with 2 clubs, flop middle pair, and have a backdoor straight draw. Small blind checks. I'm not going to bet into the pre-flop aggressor and 2 other opponents. I check. Under the gun checks. So does the button. We're seeing a free one. It's the 10 of spades. We improved to trips. Small blind checks. Lots of draws out there and a strong but vulnerable hand. I can't risk this checking through again. I take the initiative, announcing a bet of
45.
Under the gun folds before I can even get my bet out. The button calls. I imagine he has a pair or a draw of some sort. Small blind lets his cards go. It's heads up. The river is the deuce of spades. It isn't great because the backdoor flush gets there. What I should do is check because if he had a draw other than the spade flush draw, he won't be able to call a bet since those all missed. Checking gives my opponent an opportunity to bluff at it if he doesn't have anything, and if he does have a flush, he's going to be calling a bet anyway. Instead, I convince myself that betting 85 is best in order to name my price if I am beat, and perhaps get a light call out of the button if he somehow has a queen that he didn't feel comfortable betting on the flop when there were 3 other players in the hand. My plan is to fold to a raise. The opponent snap calls. It's usually never good news. I turn over trip 10s. No good. The button called pre-flop with King 5 of spades. Got a great run out.
Nice hand.
We don't get off to the start that we hoped for. We're stuck early on. Meanwhile, my girlfriend is sipping fancy drinks by the pool, trying to earn her vacation by getting some B-roll shots from me. Unfortunately, her filming skills aren't quite up to par. Generally, you don't want to lose grip of the camera and have your finger in the shot quite as much. This part actually doesn't look so bad. Okay, never mind. Back to poker. We've got King 8 of hearts in the big blind. Under the gun opens at 20. The hijack calls. The cutoff calls. I'm getting a good price once again. I call and close the action. 4 of us are seeing the flop. It's King Jack 4 with 2 spades. We have top pair with a kicker that isn't great. I check. Under the gun bets 45. The hijack and cutoff both fold. I make the call. I'm not certain I'm best though. We're heads up. The turn is the 10 of diamonds. I check. This time the opponent checks back. My pair of kings could be good. The river is a 3. I imagine I'm up against a 1-pair hand at best after it got checked back on the previous street. I put out a small bet of 70 to potentially get called by worse, or to block a larger bet from a hand like aces or ace-king. I definitely wouldn't be check folding anyway. Under the gun calls. I turn over the loser. The player indeed has ace-king. He's awarded some Bradley dollars.
That's kind of what I thought.
We're in Stuckville. I add on for 300, then we pick up a little ace-king of our own. We're in the big blind again. The opponent from the last hand opens a 20 from under the gun. If I were in position, I 3-bet in the $60 to $70 range. Since I'm out of position, I 3-bet to 80. That doesn't faze my nemesis. He makes the call. We're heads up in a pot that's getting large. The flop comes King 4-3 with 2 spades. We have top. It's a terrific situation to be in. I want to target medium pocket pairs like queens down to 9s. I bet 65. Probably had a giant grin on my face that the opponent might have seen because he lets his cards go. I don't get to take him to Pain Town or Value Town. I do pick up the pot though. Next I've got Ace Jack suited under the gun. There's a button straddle, so the small blind acts first. Big blind calls to 10. I raise it to 50. The The big blind calls, we're heads up, the dealer puts out queen 4-4 rainbow. It's not a flop that's going to connect well with the big blind. He checks, I have what's likely the best hand, and I have some backdoor draws, I bet 45. I imagine I'll get called by lots of small and medium pocket pairs, so I'll continue on a lot of high turn cards or spades. The big blind calls, which is fine by me. The turn is the ace of diamonds, we have top pair. The big blind checks, now my plan has changed a bit. I don't think his small or medium pocket pairs can call a bet, so I check back for deception. The river is a 7, the big blind checks. Probably wouldn't have done that with trips or better. I should have the winner. I bet 70 in an attempt to get a crying call. The player is too good. He folds king queen face up. It's a great laydown. I'm surprised I wasn't able to squeeze a little more value out of him. In this one, we pick up ace 5 offsuit in the big blind. The button open limps. I check. We're heads up. The flop is ace 7 deuce with 2 spades. We have top pair with some strong backdoor draws. I check. The button overbets pot, making it 20. Weird situation for me to be in. I call. The turn is the 5 of spades, giving me 2 pair and the nut flush draw. Great card. I check. The button fires for 125. To bet at 2.5 times the size of the pot. I'm super confused. My opponent is probably either very strong or he's bluffing. There's still plenty of cards that can improve my hand to the nuts or a full house. I call in order to keep the button's bluffs in if he has any. The river is another deuce. It's not quite what we wanted. I check. The button is concerned. He checks back while simultaneously turning over 8-4 of spades for the flush. That was one of the most bizarre hands that I played in a long time. It unfolded as if the player had the ability to not only see what I had, but also pick the best turn card possible for himself and make the absolute maximum before the river came out. That one would have been nice to win. Several hours have gone by and I'm running quite cold before I pick up ace-king suited in the small blind. I bought the button, so the big blind is first to act. He limps in. I raise to 25. The big blind calls. We're heads up. The flop comes king 10-6 with 2 hearts. We have top pair, top kicker. I like it. I bet 25 for value. The big blind calls. The turn is another 6. This is a good card since none of the draws get there. I step it up and bet 55. The big blind tosses in 85, seemingly attempting to raise it. It's not an amount that's legal in Florida. He's forced to min raise to 110. At this point, I get the sense that I'm beat, but I can't fold for 55 more. I call. The river is no help. It's a deuce of hearts completing the flush draw. I check. The big blind surprisingly checks back. He's confident he's got the winner though.
I got you both ways. You did get me both ways. Nice hand, man.
The player has 8-6 of hearts. He turned trip 6s and rivered the flush just in case 3 of a kind was no good. At least he didn't bet anything on the river because I'm not so much in the folding mood right now. Later I pick up king 9 suited under the gun. In a full ring game, I may fold from this position depending on the lineup, but remember we're 7-handed. I open to 20. The cutoff is the only caller. We're heads up. The flop comes ace 3 deuce rainbow. We only have a backdoor flush draw. Still, I'll have lots of aces in my range. I rep one, betting 20. The cutoff calls. He could have some weak aces, middle pocket pairs, or a hand like 4s or 5s. The turn is the jack of clubs. Against the range that I believe I'm up against, a double barrel should be pretty effective in getting folds. I also have a draw to the nuts, so I bet 55. The cutoff calls. Plan A is to hit the flush. Plan B is to bomb high card rivers that will be better for my range. Unfortunately, the river is the 4 of diamonds. There's 4 to the straight out there. I can't reasonably rep a 5, and my opponent can. Overall, it's a much better card for him. I'm handcuffed and forced to kind of give up. I check, hoping it doesn't get checked back because I don't want to turn over my cards. The player luckily bets 125. I'm obviously not calling. I fold before getting a shot at the board. The opponent is gracious enough to show for the vlog that he has me beat. He turns over ace 4 hearts, he river 2 pair, and wins the pot that I very much wanted to steal from him. I'm glad that I gave up at the end because I was not getting a fold. Here we've got pocket 3s and the hijack. Under the gun limps in. I raise to 20. The button calls, the small blind calls, the big blind calls, and under the gun calls. We go 5 ways at the flop. It's jack 10 deuce with 2 spades. All players check. The turn is the 3 of spades. We hit our first set of the day. The small blind bets 40 into 100. It's a small bet. The big blind folds. Under the gun folds. I very likely have the best hand, and there are lots of cards that I won't want to see on the river. I raise to 150. It should look pretty strong. The button doesn't seem to be phased. He tanks for a long time, then makes the call. That's terrifying. To make things worse, the small blind also tank calls. This is an uncomfortable situation to be in. One or both of these guys probably has me beat. The river is the 6 of clubs. We don't improve. The small blind checks. I'm done putting money into the pot. I'm content just to get to showdown. The button says we're not checking this through. He puts in enough black and green chips to cover both the small blind and myself. Maybe he has the nuts, or maybe he's simply doing this with the naked ace of spades as a bluff. Small blind hates the spot that he's in, but reluctantly calls for the remainder of his stack around 425. I don't have much of a decision. I take one last look before letting my set go. The button indeed has the nuts, turns over ace 5 of spades. In most regions of the world, that's good enough to win. He including Southern Florida. Small blind flashes Queen 10 of spades to the camera, big cooler, absolute dream turn for the button. I managed to escape, losing close to the minimum, stuck about 800, but there's not much I can do given the spots that I'm finding myself in. The seat in 510 opens up, I add on, I'm in for 2,800 total, and I have 2K in front of me. The dealer tries to sanitize the bad luck off my hands. Let's see if it helps. 1 hour into 510 and about 5 hours into the overall session, I pick up ace-7 offsuit in the small blind. The hijack limps in. I call for 5 more. The big blind raised it up to 50. He's been the most active pre-flop out of all the players and seems pretty good. The hijack folds. I elect to call. We're heads up. The flop comes king 9 deuce with 2 hearts. I have an over with a backdoor flush draw. I check. The big blind bets 60. He'll be c-betting a large percentage of the time. This doesn't necessarily mean that he's that strong. I call with plans to rep a flush if a heart comes. The turn is the 8 of hearts, pick up equity, I like it. Since I have the ace of hearts, I don't think that the opponent will bet this card very often if I check to him, so I won't be able to check raise him. For that reason, I take the initiative betting 165 to hopefully fold out all of his hands worse than a pair of kings and to set up either a river bluff or a value bet in case I make the nut flush. It's funny because this is an instance in which I actually prefer to get raised rather than called. If he raises, he's mostly going to be doing it as a bluff, and I intend to re-raise, even putting value hands in very tough spots. The player calls, it's not too bad for us. The river is the 10 of clubs, we miss yet again. There seems to be a prevalent pattern of us turning lots of equity and bricking. I'm not giving up, I bet 400. Not too much time goes by before the big blind makes the call. I sheepishly turn over what I anticipate will be the losing hand. Sure enough it is, the big blind rivered a set of 10s. If it was any card other than one of the 2 remaining 10s, I'm pretty sure I would have gotten the river bluff through and I would have won the hand. I can't catch a break in any big pots, my patience supply is at a minimum. Something that doesn't make the vlog is the hours of hands I'm dealt that are garbage in between these hands that do make the vlog. All of a sudden I pick up 7-6 suited and it looks like aces to me compared to what I've been getting dealt most of the day. I open at 35, I'm under the gun +1. There's not usually a position where I open a hand this bad from, but I'm starting to get desperate to win a hand over $200. The big blind, who is a short stack, seems to be new to poker, min raises to 70. I don't see how I can fold here. I call, we're heads up, the flop comes 10-6 deuce with 2 hearts, the big blind bets 100. I've seen him bluff with nothing in previous hands. I call to see what develops in case I'm up against ace-king. The turn is the 8 of hearts, giving me a gutter to go along with my pair. The player mulls over a decision before betting 200. Too tilted to fold, I call, the river is a jack, we missed everything, the opponent has 150 in his stack, he goes all in, we made it this far, we can't fold now because we'd never sleep at night if this somehow is a bluff. Of course it isn't, his hand looks a lot more like aces than ours, mostly because he has aces. We lose over 500 in a hand that we shouldn't have really been in the first place because we've gotten our proverbial head bashed in all day. It was hard to fathom people always having it against us, but some days they just do. Playing undisciplined cost me a good chunk. I'm stuck almost 2,200, I add on for 1,400 more, I'm in for 4,200 total when I'm dealt 8-6 suited in the big blind, the hijack opens to 40. The button calls, it's 30 more for me, I call, we go 3 ways to the flop, it comes jack 7-5 with 2 clubs, flop an open-ended straight flush draw, oh baby. I check, the hijack continues for 60, the button calls, I consider putting in the check raise, there's so many cards that can help me out, I call in order to wait until I actually hit my hand before inflating the pot. The turn is the ace of clubs. We finally hit a draw today. It only took 6 hours. If you recall 2 hands ago, I led turn as a bluff when the flush draw got there. I'm going to do it here when I actually have it because I don't want it to get checked back. I bet 225. The hijack thinks for a while, then makes the call. The button folds, it's heads up. The final card is the 6 of diamonds. It's a decent one since no additional hands beat me. The entire table saw me bluff river in a similar situation when I only had the nut blocker. Time to make the same play, but this time for value. I bet 600. If I get called, I won't get unstuck. It'll do a lot to get my mindset back where it needs to be though. Ultimately, the player folds. That's the first significant pot that I've won all session. I'd love to stay and play longer, but I have dinner plans, so I rack up. Rough session, lost 1850, played 6.5 hours. The first 5 hours, I just couldn't get anything going at all. I kept running into big hands. It was not fun. Then I lost my patience, tried to force it, and that compounded the loss. Didn't play great, definitely didn't run well at all. But I'm gonna be back after it tomorrow. I'm gonna be playing the $1,100 tournament, and I'm gonna be playing some more cash at some point. Room was beautiful. Staff did a really good job. They were super on top of it in terms of cleaning everything. I was really impressed with that. They did a better job than any casino that I've been to since this pandemic started. So I guess that's it for day one out here. 2 more days of poker left. I go to the Funky Buddha. It's one of my favorite breweries in the entire country. It's a quick Uber from Seminole Hard Rock. The next morning, I hop into Flight B of the $1,100 tournament. As part of the Safe and Sound program, they limited the number of unique players to 105 per flight. Each player is allowed to re-enter 1 time within the first 2 hours. We start out with 20K in chips, and I get off to a great start. My plan was to give updates on Instagram, which is why the shots are vertical. Here I pick up pocket kings in late position. It's the only pocket pair I've seen higher than 10 so far on this trip. Blinds are 100, 200. Player limps in from under the gun. The hijack raises to 800. I 3-bet to 3K. The limper 4-bet jams for 17,300. The hijack folds. I call. The opponent reveals that he limp 4-bet jammed with pocket 8s. He's not in good shape. The flop comes 9-9-6. No help to him really. The turn is a jack. The river is a 9. We stack the player and have nearly double starting stack in the 3rd level. The run good continues as the player open jams in the hijack for 8K when blinds are 200, 400. I wake up with pocket queens in the cutoff and make the call. The player has ace-10 offsuit. We're a big favorite once again. The run out gives us the winner. It's very early on in the event, but we may be the chip leader. Certainly we've knocked out more players than anyone else. We're on a 10-minute break. We're through level 6. I've got about 59K in front of me, so 3 times starting stack, and everything is going about as well as possible today, whereas like everything yesterday was going as poorly as possible. Hard Rock hooked it up with this mass, which is a lot more comfortable than the other one, and things are going great, man. Hopefully I can just keep the momentum. I run my stack all the way up to 68K before being dealt ace-king offsuit on the button. I call a 4-bet jam for 19,000 from a middle position player. I'm pumped up because he shoved as a bluff with king-jack offsuit. We have him completely dominated, at least until the flop comes. The dealer puts out jack 9-7. We're drawing slim to an ace or backdoor draws. The turn is the 6 of diamonds. The river is the 4 of hearts. We don't get him.
That's fine.
Level 10 with 45 remaining out of the original 135 entrants. I get short and slightly overbet jam as a semi-bluff on the turn with an open-ender. Unfortunately, my opponent can't get away from his king-high flush draw and gutter. He calls.
Good call, man. Nice, man.
The river gives king 3 of hearts to flush. We get knocked out. I take several hours off from poker before hopping back into the 5-10 a little after midnight, and I get into the biggest part of the trip. Pick up pocket 4s in the big blind. The cutoff opens at 30. The button calls. I defend. The flop comes 6-4 deuce rainbow. We have middle set. I check to the pre-flop aggressor. He bets 60. The button makes the call. I fly with hopes to check raise the turn. The dealer puts out the 9 of clubs. Pretty safe card. I check. The cutoff increases his bet size to 250. The button folds. This is the time to try and get as much money in as possible. I raise to 800. I'm hoping the opponent will have a big overpair that he can't get away from. He doesn't seem to be sure about what he wants to do. Eventually he calls. The river is the queen of clubs. The backdoor flush gets there and pocket queens now has me beat. Cutoff has 1,095 in his stack. The pot is quite a bit larger than that. There's no real reason for me to think that I'm necessarily up against a flush or exactly pocket queens. I don't want to check and have aces or kings check back. I announce that I'm all in. I just don't want to get snap called. Unfortunately I do. I know that's not good news. I turn over the set. The player shows that he has 7-5 of clubs. He flops an open ender, turned a flush draw to go with it, and drilled the river. That one hurt really bad.
That's fine. Easy game.
And I'm just stuck piles and piles of money on this trip. So whatever they want, whatever they need, they're getting. And poker part has not been great, but other than that, trip's going awesome. I play one more session at 2-5 in which I lose $400. I don't win a single poker session at Seminole Hard Rock. Altogether, I'm stuck just under $6,000 on the trip. Luckily, there are plenty of other things to do on the property that keep me distracted. I watch a stunning light show. The lights on the guitar are synced with music. If you're ever in Southern Florida, you have to check it out. Later, I get a delicious meal at Espresso, an Italian food restaurant at Seminole Hard Rock. My girlfriend and I have some wine, some meatballs, burrata. For the main meal, we have sausage pasta and lobster pasta. Poker didn't go well for me, but everything else was about as good as it gets. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons because it helps out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. Big thanks goes out to Seminole Hard Rock. I had a great time out there despite getting wrecked in poker. There's just so much cool stuff on that property and all around it. You should definitely check it out if you ever get the chance. They obviously did a great job with their safe and sound program. I highlighted that in the video. And the action is probably the first or best in the entire country. I think them in Texas is pretty close. If you're interested in getting some new merchandise, I've got these new holiday shirts. They're going to be available for a limited time. This is a No Right Way to Play Jiggity shirt. I have some Welcome to Valuetown ones as well. And prices have been lowered to $25. It's a bit of a sale going on. Pick yourself up something. I'll have a link down below in the description box. Hope you guys are all doing well. Stay safe. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.